Hey, it's Mike from Lake and Lodge. Excited to be doing something different. Took a minute, hoed out the shop here, cleaned things up a bit so I could stand it. Now that I'm done cutting and grinding, you can see I got rust stains on the floor from all the grindings that got wet, and just, it was a mess. So tried to clean things up best I could. Most of the cutting and grinding is done, so I figured it was safe to do a good cleaning here. Excited to do something a little different today. Going to start by installing the pedal package, getting the Clutch Master cylinder in. It's a McLoad setup, hydraulic clutch bearing. This is the reservoir that comes with it. It just kind of looks cheap, so I went out and bought a nice billet one. I'll adapt that for the clutch purposes. But I had to buy a set of pedals to get the brake pedal. The clutch pedal needs to be replaced, the brake pedal. The clutch pedal needs to be replaced with this one because it has a different mounting hole location for the Clutch Master cylinder. And then this is just a double disc front and rear, 9-inch vacuum boost master cylinder. So got to get that mocked up and installed. And then over here, I got the new steering column in, so I can also mock that up, make sure it's all going to fit. It's got a cool little plate for where it comes through the firewall. Watch out, California, this plate will kill you, just so you know. So yeah, that's what I'm going to try to get into next. Like I said, excited to do something a little different, other than, body fab and sheet metal work. Going to start doing some fit up, which, will be fun. I've already got the new pedal bracket in there. Pedal bracket that came in, a couple of the studs on the front were broke off right here. So I just bought a new one that was minimal money, so it wasn't worth trying to clean the old one and get it all redone. So at the end of the day, it's going to be new. I'll have all the new pedal assemblies in there and the steering column assembly. So we'll see how it all comes together. This is a Flaming River tilt column, built specifically for this car. Has a 1-inch double D shaft at the bottom, and I have a universal U-joint that will adapt that out to the steering box that comes on the Scott's Hot Rods chassis. That's a rack and pinion, actually. So, and this comes with, the directional lever, the tilt lever. Of course, being a 67, the key is in the dash. Key is not in the column, so that makes it a little easier. I do have my old column up there, but by the time I actually went through and started looking at what it was going to take to rebuild it, and it's not tilt. So I really wanted to have a tilt setup, so that's where it's at. Step one is to get the pedals in there. Now, the McLoud setup has a spacer you have to put in here, but it's cleverly omitted from their instructions. So that's a little spacer that goes over the clutch shaft first. And then you just slide it. I put a little bit of red grease on that shaft. Also not in the instructions, but you can't hurt. So one thing I noticed right out of the gate that I'm not real keen on, a couple things. This. So if you look down in here, this screw is holding this away from the firewall. It's actually pushing it out. You can actually see some light down through there. So I'm going to grind the back of that off a little bit, just to make sure that that isn't interfering. And then I've got to come up with some sort of way to seal the back of this plate, so that we don't have this open area to the cockpit. So there's got to be some sort of gasket affair that I've got to rig up in here. So I'll work on that. Then I'm going to take my reservoir here, and I'll put in a couple of riv nuts up on the firewall back here. And that should drop right down through nicely. Should work out really well. It won't be in the way of the build tag, equipment tag. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going on this, but I'm gonna pull that out, get some black EPDM rubber, and try to fashion some sort of gasket to go behind that so I don't have that area leaking on me. It's funny they don't mention that, but it's a thing, so I'll figure it out. And then I've just got to attach my pedals to the pistons, make sure that the throw is right. But first I'm going to pull this back apart, make sure everything's sitting in there properly, get that gasket material in there. And if I don't do a gasket, then I'm going to have to weld on some sort of, build some sort of step out around here and make this piece a permanent fixture. Not sure how else to do it. But yeah, that's part of what's fun, right? You can see right there, the back of that plate doesn't really match the firewall all that great. So I want to clean that up. I don't want to leave that like that. So my choices are either weld a little flange around the back of that so that it sits flush to the firewall, which I could do, and then seam seal that. That's probably the right play. Or I take a piece of EPDM rubber and make a gasket that, fairly thick gasket that sucks up that backspace. So we'll let you know. So I've researched this a little bit, and a couple things. There is a boot that covers this and comes out this way for this stock clutch setup. And that boot won't work with this piston. It interferes with this plate. So if you put this plate up here, the other thing I noticed pretty readily is this hole doesn't, I know the pin goes up through here, but this could be a little better. So the bottom line is they have left a pretty big exposed area here where shit can get up in here, get behind that piston, potentially get into the cab. So what I did is I took some tape, took some tape and wrapped this edge with it from this bend. Yeah, got to do a little better job here. From this bend to this edge. And I made just a piece of sheet metal that I am going to wrap around there and tack it and eventually weld it off so that the whole process is sealed. Then I will take that, and once I bolt this in permanently, I'll probably tack it off to the firewall in a couple places just so it can't move. And then what I'll do is I'll seal it with some seam sealer, and then that should be a good sealed unit. Shouldn't have any problems after that. So I'll show you what I got when I get a little further along. And here's what it looks like after the modification. So I just took and welded a flange all the way around that edge so that I can get it up tight to the firewall. Next, I'll go in and just cut the contours because there's a few uneven places. There's like a little high spot in here I'm gonna have to trim out, and just trim the contours around there so it fits snug against the firewall. And then I should be good. Then I'll hit this with some epoxy, get it sealed up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's fit. And this is the finished product. Just letting it dry and stick to the cardboard box. So I just put a little skirt around it, welded it on there, hit it with epoxy, and now when I put it up here, it has a nice tight fit against the firewall. So when I get ready, now this won't work if you're using a speedometer cable because that goes right through there. So you'd have to make allowances for that. But it should work fine now. If I clamp that in there, tighten it up, and then I can put seam sealer around the edge, and that should keep any contaminants, water and whatnot out of there. Should work out pretty good. So yeah, this is still, it's a little tacky still, so we'll let that dry. This is the part number for the piece we're working with. So yeah, that's it. Now, interesting thing I was just playing with, I got the clutch mount, the clutch reservoir mounted up. I just put a couple of riv nuts into the firewall, and then that'll feed right down into that cylinder. Now, of course, this is a 67. This is the plate for the steering column mount, lower mount. Now, this plate is set up to accommodate 68s or a 68, 67, or 69. So 69 has 4 bolt holes, these big ones. 67 has 3, these 2 big ones and this one. But interestingly enough, the bracket that I bought to hold the Holley gas pedal is for a 69. And here it is. This just mounts on these 2 holes inside the car. So what I figured out was, wait a minute, said to myself, if I took this thing and just marked out where the 69 screws go, and I put in 2 riv nuts, and I just tacked them on the back, put in 2 riv nuts at the 69 locations, then I can use this bracket without incident. So that's my plan. Hopefully I didn't do anything that's gonna rip a hole in space and time, but I think I'm good. So we'll see. So ultimately I just put in the 2 extra nuts for the 69 version of the firewall steering column mounting plate, and we'll see how it works out. And that's what the final bracket looks like. Nice and tight against the firewall. I got a good amount of room. I did put this plate in, but yeah, so that's that. Now I can stick the brake booster on and start working the pedals for that. But I did manage to attach the Holley. There we go. Jeez, get in there. Oh, finding a place, it's hard. Okay, so that black bracket there is the bracket for the Holley drive-by-wire pedal. Okay, and by putting in this 69 screw location, I was able to mount that right up, so it worked out pretty well. Once I get the pedals all fitted, I will go ahead and throw the steering column in just to make sure everything's copacetic there. But so far so good. I find there's apparently a worldwide shortage of the gasket that goes behind that aluminum bracket for the plate, the mounting plate for the steering column. So I ordered just some EPDM adhesive back foam, and I will cut my own gasket for it once I pull it all back apart. But next thing to do is adjust the clutch pedal, get that right. Then I'll throw the brake pedal, brake booster up in, get that adjusted, make sure everything's okay. I do need to work out a location for a clutch switch. This one obviously never had that. So I got a brake switch, I got an extra one. I can just use that for a clutch switch. I'm thinking I'm just gonna rework this tab right here, but I'll pull it all back out. And that's the bumper stop for the clutch, that rectangular hole. So I'll pull that all back out and give that a go. But yeah, that's coming together. It's time to get some pedalage. And of course the Holley drive-by-wire pedal is on infinite back order apparently. So I'm still waiting for that. So yeah, that's where I'm at. All right, here's what the final setup looks like. Got the Clutch Master cylinder in, clutch reservoir. I do have a little bleeder I have to mount right here for the clutch throwout bearing. Maybe even over a little further, but I've got to wait till I take this back off to get in there with the drill and the riv nut. But this is what the setup looks like. I think it's pretty good. This, by the way, is from, this is a 9-inch booster double disc from Jegs, I believe. Nice little setup with proportioning valve, brake light switch built in. And I still, obviously I'm not going to plumb my hoses up until I'm ready to go, but the hose for the reservoir just runs down to that. Nothing real fancy there. And then this is where the hose runs down to the clutch throwout bearing. And then there'll be a bleeder line that I'll bring all the way up into here so a non-contortionist can bleed it. And look at this. That's exciting. Button's not quite straight on the horn yet, but I've got to just adjust that a little. But that's the new steering column tilt, and it fits beautifully. I put the rods in, got the brackets all in for the steering column. Interestingly enough, these two bolts right here were 3/8, 16, not 5/16. The bolt kit comes with 5/16 bolts for it, but the nuts in this particular upper cowl are 3/8, 16. So I just had to drill out those arms and put some different bolts in. But all in all, went together very nice. Got the brackets in there, all my pedals are mounted up. I've got the position for the bracket for the Holley drive-by-wires in. And we got a nice little, we got almost 3 pedals. We got 2 pedals and a place for a third. So looking good, looking really good. And like I mentioned before, I am going to pull this apart, and when I pull this bracket out to do the painting and everything, I'm going to build on a place for a clutch switch in here. See if I can get you in there better. Maybe not. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to build in a place for a clutch switch down there so that, with the Holley kit, you can set it up so that it won't engage the starter unless the clutch is pushed in. For me, it's probably not that big a deal, but for anybody else that's used to driving a modern car, that's going to be a problem if you don't have that. Somebody's going to inevitably take it down the road on the starter. Anyway, looking good so far. Feeling pretty good about everything. Don't really have any big challenges yet. This all did the test fit just fine. Steering wheel, steering column, tilt, directional return works. Assuming it's even got a emergency flasher switch on the column, which is nice. So yeah, that's it for that segment. I think I'm going to work this out and pull it all back apart. I'm going to get some totes so I can start organizing things that I've got fitted up and pulled apart and want to keep clean and whatnot. And I'll just wrap that whole steering column in plastic once I pull it back out. But it's pretty decent right now. Now the one thing that's weird is I'm not really sure this boot down here for the steering column. I know this isn't a normal plate, but I'm not really sure how this goes on here. I think it's something like that, but I don't know. I gotta figure out how that gets oriented and all of that, and maybe the smart play is just to get a regular 2-inch boot and get rid of the one with a weird step in it. It's got this odd step over here on the side that looks like it goes somewhere, but I don't see that. I've got a original steering column up there. I don't see that step in it. I'm not really sure how that's supposed to happen. So, if anybody has any insight on that, tap me a little note and I'll have a look at it, and I'm sure I'll get plenty of input. Go-Go Garage and Vice Grip Garage, and those guys are heavy into this sort of thing, and Arrowhead Garage, and my buddy Louie over at First Generation Garage. Those guys my Firebird posse. They basically work right through this stuff all the time. So I'm sure if I dig a little bit and go back through some of their videos, I'm sure I've seen it. I just haven't, can't commit everything to memory, running out of petabytes. And so yeah, that's about it for today. I think I'm gonna wrap that one up on the pedal assembly. We'll call that a success.